Hello, hello. I think we're starting now. Okay, so it looks like we've got 3 groups of the 4 groups that we had, or if we've got 1 person from each group here. So this is this is 1 group, this is another group, and then were all of you in a group together, or is it just you 2? Okay.
我们现在在分组，然后第2阶段的design open design for humanitarian chart 正式开始，然后现在就是在等大家到齐。现场有没有人需要英文翻译？但其实是为了录影，所以我还是要翻译一下。对，所以你们听得懂。好，你需要翻译吗？好，不要害羞，拜托告诉我，我会特别多去关心你。
Okay, so this is the second half of the workshop that we started last week, and you, as groups, you may have been doing the exercises from the murals online, but what we will do today is spend some time recapping those exercises, finishing anything that you might not have had time to finish, and then we're going to start prototyping. So if you've already finished a lot of the exercises, then you can actually start prototyping right away and you have more time to prototype. So members of your group that haven't been able to make it today, if you did want to talk with them on your line groups or your Slack groups, or if you want to dial them in using Slack Call, you can do that as well.
所以现在呢，现在刚开始就是可以，你们上礼拜有一些，比如说还没有，一些功课你们还没有完成，或是一些练习还没有完成，趁现在可以赶快完成。然后跟你的队友们呢，你现在可以用一些讯息的 app， 比如说 Line 或是 Slack 方式把他们叫一起进来，因为我们这次是有远端的人一起合作。所以你们那一组人关系比较多，你要确定说他在哪里，还是比较晚到呢，还是他现在在远端？所以现在就是赶快把他们都找进来，然后一起把你们上礼拜完成的事情，就是告一段的事情再连接起来，然后就继续的把你们那个成品，今天就是成品，大部分是成品的时间会把成品呈现出来。那现在就是可以开始联络，然后把一些功课什么东西都联系起来。
Cool, so the first thing I want you as groups to do is a little bit of a reintroduction, recap of last week. So if you can take 2 post-it notes and a pen, and what I want you to do is write one skill you learned something new about from last week or in between this week. So it might have been you learned more about Mural or how to collaborate online. You might have learned about Adobe XD as a prototyping tool. And one new insight into our use case. So this is around typhoons. So what do you remember as one of the key things from our user group that we're designing from last week?
所以桌面上有一些小小的那个便条纸，就是你们可以写说上礼拜你就学习到台风灾难的时候，你有学习到，比如说一个新的技巧，比如说你在上礼拜的工作坊学到什么东西，写一个，然后还有你的感想也写一个，所以是各写一个，然后写在便条纸上面，然后等一下可以跟团内的人一起讨论这样。
Okay, so 5 minutes to do your post-its.
5分钟的时间，大家可以想一下那个感想，还有上次学到的东西的部分。
Go for it. So I'm going to go around the groups and I'm going to ask about specifically the insight into the user groups that you have written down. So I'm going to start with this group that's closest to me. So everyone? Teams? Okay, cool. So one thing from one person about the insight into the user group.
Okay. Okay. So I think altogether actually we all sort of learn more about thinking from different user groups, how in one situation there can be so many different things to think about, so many emotions involved that need to be dealt with carefully.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so many different kinds of personalities potentially involved with different backgrounds.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. So many things to consider. It's okay. So this team.
I learned that because we have different members from different regions, so I think this makes our work very efficient.
Yeah.
Because we all have our professions.
Right.
And because we have a line group and we have some discussion, then we finish our work using the Google documents. So
Okay.
yeah. And and because we have many and because some of our members are designers, but others are not, so we learn how to use the Adobe XD.
Cool.
And because I think it's very cool to know everyone's profession. And we because we want to make things efficient, so we have our progress plan. We have the design progress and report. And we work together very happy. Thank you.
This is cool. So I'm going to just recap that and see if Julia is around. Oh, she is. So one of the main things about open source design contribution is that at the moment, as we talked about last week, there's not a set structure on how to contribute. So what we're doing in these groups now is finding the kinds of structures that work really well for open design contribution. And so what these things that you've tried out in groups will inform how other groups around the world start to do more design contribution. So how you're learning new skills to do with design and how you're practicing remote collaboration is part of the process. That's okay. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna go to this group next. So one of the insight from the users that you learned from last week. So a new skill or an insight that you are thinking about on your challenge.
Okay. Because last week I had very busy so very difficult to find four people at the same time to do together. So but all of us is no experience about just keep or doing things before.
Yeah.
So it's so unsure for the class. So I think that's it.
Okay.
他分享他们最有挑战的是，他们其实上一个 workshop， 但这次 workshop 大概是1个礼拜的间隔时间，然后中间大家其实都蛮忙的，所以比较无法跟别人就是联络啊，然后讨论。不过现在就是大家可以碰面，然后就趁这个机会，然后把所有的上次的点在最后总结，这样他觉得就是挑战是在这部分。
So to respond to what you said, this is like the learning process. So going slowly and taking your time to find how the group works together well is completely fine and very good in this process. We're discovering what is a good amount of time to spend remotely collaborating as a group, and this is good information. So it's hard to collaborate remotely across lots of different life commitments, work and family. So this is all part of the process of finding how we do open design.
刚刚分享到的挑战，Eriol 说这是一部分很自然的过程，那它也是正面的回馈哪怕过程是困难的，因为这是你学习到的比如说在远端工作中需要的挑战，就比如说你们是需要多长的时间去沟通，因为每个人都是有工作还有不同的角色要扮演，所以这就是学习的过程。说其实你会怎么去衡量跟那个拿捏那个时间，你需要的时间，所以这是一个好的挑战。
So I was going to talk about creating online groups, but it seems like the groups here present have created groups where you're calling in a few people and you're discussing things in your groups, which is great. But the most important thing for open design collaboration when you're not able to be in the same physical space together is how you create and maintain these groups. So what works for everyone, whether it's Line, whether it's Slack, whether it's using phone calls, there needs to be some people that take on the responsibility of organizing that part of it. It's a part we can very easily forget how important coordinating your group is. So I appreciate all the people that coordinated their groups.
远端设计远端工作开源设计最难的就是你在远端工作的时候，你要怎么跟团队沟通的这个过程呢是需要比如说有个人去统整这个所有的过程。那确定大家在远端工作这段时间，所有的一切都还是按照的计划走，然后所有该做的事情还是有完成。这样当你们下次在碰面的时候呢，一切就是还是可以顺利的进行。
And what you can now do, having done this process, is you're now empowered with those organization skills, the resources that you used through this week. You can take and you can apply this to any open source project you might want to contribute open design to. So any of the other open source projects that you know that you really want to start contributing design to, what we would love to happen after this day, after these weeks, is that you take that format, change it, make it work differently for you if you need to, and then apply it to other open source projects.
所以这次希望你们可以从中学到经验的是开源的精神，开源设计的精神。那你们从中知道怎么去调谐这个远端工具远端工作的沟通技巧，你们就可以把它在不同的比如说你们做的专案上都可以去应用，然后不只是开源设计这个专案你在做，以后你们任何专案都可以去运用，然后把它改变调整成适合自己模式的工作方式，就是你可以把这带走，就是变成是属于你的一个技巧这样子。
Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through the exercises that were completed throughout the remote week. We have time today to complete any of those exercises that you might not have had time to complete over the week. Or if you want to review them, go back over them, talk with me about them, then we have time to do that. So the first activity was the defining the problems. So this was taking the challenge that you chose as a group, looking at the empathy map that you created as a group last week, and really trying to isolate the individual problems around this challenge. Smaller pieces, that people would need to do on the application that you can start to build out prototypes for?
上礼拜他们有做了一个同理心的一个地图，那我们就是利用这次大家聚在一起的时间呢，然后把上次没有做完，或者是你们在远端工作的这上市1周没有做完的事情，我们一起把它做完，然后我们把我们这个工作，我们这个讨论的目的是要找出问题，然后可能就是一个一个的那个便条纸上面就是每个人贡献的点子，然后现在大家可以把你们之前写的，然后再把它放在一起，然后讨论，然后找出你们大家都同意的问题。
And what this exercise is really good for as well is when you find an open source project that has an issue you want to contribute design to, going through this exercise will help that open source project to better narrow and define what they actually want to solve.
Eriol 再次强调说，这次的光从比如说这样的练习过程中，你可以由此把它带走，就是任何的一个开源的专案，你都可以由此去定义出问题。因为当你要解决一件事情的时候，它可能有很多层面、很多想法、很多问题。那这个就是可以帮你找出你那个症结点，是你真正想要解决的，是从那么多的问题里面找出几个比较少的，然后可以你想要怎么说 focus， 就是你想要专注的问题上面。
So everyone should have added challenges and problems to the template and then democratically voted on what you wanted to focus on. So using the method where you get 3 votes on what you then think is the thing to focus on as a team, what you're doing is then promoting great teamwork within the collaboration contribution process.
所以当你们都每个人贡献出来的时候，你们可以投票，每个人你的点子最多就比如说3张，你就每个人就是投3张票，我觉得你们做的点子你就投，总共有3张票你可以投这样子。
So the next one was around ideation. So this is where we're starting to get more creative. So less about defining exactly the step-by-step challenges, things like that, and more like, what if we could do this to solve this? And there were a few different sections within the ideation. There were like wild ideas that required technical things that weren't necessarily possible, things that were more grounded in technical realities, and things that you knew that you could achieve. And what this does is it really explores what you think that is feasible right now, and then also what you want to aim towards. So what's feasible right now might not be the best way to solve a problem, but at least you know this is what we can achieve now in a design with what exists in the system within the open source, and here's where we want to get to with one of the wild ideas. And again, a voting process to decide on which to take forward as a team.
那大家就是分组下去，然后大家来投票，点子这样。
So there were a few rules around brainstorming which you can find in the template that was online. So we won't recap these, but these were the guidance suggestions around brainstorming that we really encourage around this kind of activity. Okay, so that's actually in the wrong place. But anyway, we'll go back to it. So the next exercise was storyboarding. So this is quite a tricky exercise to do online, to sketch using a online canvas. So this might have been one that you wanted to save for today when you wanted to sketch in person, or you might have sketched and then uploaded photos. But what storyboarding allows us to do is where we might see gaps in how somebody's experiencing an event, we can then make sure that we're designing the right kind of screens, the right kind of interactions for those moments. So we're not leaving any part out of consideration.
这个地方有点难，远端协作。不过这个地方，万一你现在有一些team members 在旁边的话，你队友在旁边的话，是可以进行的。然后这个工作这样。
And reminding people that with storyboarding, stick figures are totally okay. It's about capturing what is happening, not about being a very talented artist.
所有的事情呢，就是你们放在这个 storyboard 的，不用是完美的，它可以就是大家看得懂就可以了，不必变成专家这样。
So one of the examples that I gave in the template online was this one, which was around using 10.4 for a bombing that happened in the UK, in Manchester. So here's where I prototyped what storyboarded what a person was doing physically as they were going through some of the steps. So the first...
This is 这个是他上次他自己在创造他上一个救援工具的例子。他就是他的 storyboard 然后他上次在 Manchester 在那个英国的一个爆炸案中，他创造的。
Okay, so you've got the part where somebody is getting an alert from social media about the event, a part where news is being reported, and how at that point I'm starting to think, okay, how does news get fed into the application that I'm designing for? So now I'm thinking, what are all the different screens, what are all the different interactions that I need to think about in that moment? Next, about the matching.
所以第一个你在看那个从左边左上角那个，他是在社群媒体看到，就是发生这件事情，他发现这件恐怖攻击爆炸案，然后后来呢新闻又报道了，然后他就在想说，这其中到底是有哪一些媒介有哪一些人透过哪一些东西去了解，有爆炸案这件事情这样子。
And then about getting notified that a family member is present at the event, the bombing, checking in and using the check-in system on 10.4, and then getting an update when this person heads to the hospital because they've been picked up by the emergency services.
所以你看这个右上角这个，它就是把新闻报道跟社群的资讯呢做个结合，关于这个爆炸案做结合。结合之后呢，他就知道说他家里有哪一些人，就是在左下角地方有哪一些人是其实是在一样，就是说亲戚朋友也是被攻击的，然后他就会找到，然后他找到之后，他就利用他的这个救援工具呢去问那一些受伤的亲人说：“你还可以吗？”这就是他详细设计的救援工具。然后这个就是他可以去处理，比如说他应该，比如说他是在医院的吗？还是在哪里？就是一个保持联络的工具，这是他上次设计的一个产品的一个 prototype。
So the next thing that I'm going to do is give you a really quick demo of Adobe XD and how you could use it to start your prototype if you haven't started your prototype already. I think some teams have already gotten into XD, which is great. One step that you can do before XD as well is over on the table there is printouts of phone screens, and if you wanted to sketch the screens that you need to do in Adobe XD, then that again can help you identify how many screens you need to create, how many buttons you might need. So it's a good way of finding the gaps that you might miss if you go straight into the software. Okay, so I'm going to move over to my computer and do the demo, so bear with me. Okay, so this is what you see when you open Adobe XD for the first time. except for you won't have all of these different files that I've used. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up the template file, the 10.4 sticker sheet, which is what we call it. It's a big file, so it takes a while. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is, this is what you can see, it's the master file. So this is the file that with Open Design, we want to keep accurate versions of them. So what we'll do first is create a new file.
所以你看到那边就是它算是一个全部的档案的地方，然后它现在要建立新档。
And we're going to So we're going to create a blank file that we'll title So the reason we don't move screens around in the master file is that that is a huge file that contains a lot of screens, and what you really want is a file that contains your prototype for your challenge. So there's two different options here in XD. One of them is to save the file to your local computer, and the other is to actually create a cloud document. So a cloud document means that you create a link and multiple people can work in that document simultaneously. But we're going to create one on the desktop for now. So it's always really important to make sure that you name your canvases. So I'm naming this landing screen. And I'm going to take the first page from 10.4. I'm going to copy that. So when edit copy or control Apple copy. And I'm going to paste it in. And it's actually pasted the whole of the canvas, but I'm going to move this over here. So I don't need this anymore. And as you can see, this is where the mobile screen breakpoint is. So I'm actually going to drag this all the way down. So that So that's how you take screens from the master sticker sheet, from there to a new file to start creating your specific prototype. Okay. So I just want to make sure that I have two screens in here. So that we can start to build a clickable prototype. Oh gosh. Okay, so I've changed this menu item to task list, thinking about one of the challenges. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to take let's say, any screen with, oh actually, do you know what, I'll take from this section. So here we go, this is what we need, the lists. And then here, I'm going to paste that in there. So that's not hugely accurate because we still need this top part, but for the sake of the demo, we're going to say like task 1. Okay. So imagine I've taken all the bits that I need to create this prototype where I'm creating a new part of 10.4 which includes a task list. So what I'll do next to turn it into a clickable prototype is I'll go to the prototype tab, and what I might do is actually double click on a section, drag this arrow, and then when somebody clicks on this menu item here, they'll go to this screen next. And then when somebody clicks here, they'll go to this screen next. So if you need any support with using XD, or you have any questions on how to do certain things in XD, you can ask me when we start doing prototype building. But this is just a really quick version. So if you want to preview your prototype, you press this little play button in the top, and it comes up here with like a preview. And you can click the parts that you've made clickable, but you can't click anywhere else, only on the parts you've made clickable. And then you've created a prototype that when you have a link in the issue, developers can click through and see, oh, I need to create a new list page, I need to create this new style, etc., etc. So the last thing I'm going to demo before we start recapping exercises and working in teams is just how you create a share link so that you can put that link in the GitHub issue when it's finished. So there's another tab called Share, and then over on this side here, it's how you create a link. You want to choose Design Review. There's a few different ones that you can choose now from Adobe XD, but I recommend Design Review because it will look most like this. And we'll take a look at the link after we've created it as well. And because this is open source, we want anyone with the link can view the prototype. And then you click Create Link. And there it is. And you can copy the link using the little link icon here. And you can paste that into the browser. And here's your clickable prototype viewable in a browser. So anyone can see this. And what we want to be doing at the end of this workshop is in the issue that's your challenge, is putting that in the comment and along with any images or any explanation of the prototype. And that's how we do our design contribution. Okay, so that's the portion of this workshop where I do lots of talking. The next part of the workshop is all about you in your groups, creating your prototypes, discussing the different exercises that you did over the week, finishing any of those exercises, and starting to build this prototype out. So we have until, we're going to say 3:30, 3:30 or 3:45, because we're finishing at 4:30. And what we'll then do is you need to create a shareable link and send it to me on Slack. And then we're going to do some presentations. And then we're inviting Mei and our witnesses to give feedback on the prototypes and also feedback from myself and other people around the groups.
所以接下来就是他就会开始没有讲那么多话，会让大家呢开始创造这个专案。那专案大概差不多快4点的时候呢，我们会把这个连结呢寄给 Eriol， 然后 Eriol 呢会展示所有各组的连结，然后会让我们的见证者、受灾户看到每个人所创造出来的成品。那他们会给予奖品，给予回馈，让你们知道说你们的专案是否对他们得到帮助，然后可以有所改进在哪些地方这样子。所以现在就是你们创造专案的时间。
Okay, so while we, do you want to take the cable out and plug it back in? See if that. So the last thing to say about your Adobe prototypes, if you create a new component a new design element for 10.4, what we want to do is add that to the master file so that other groups in the future can use that new component when they're designing. And I can help you with that process. There we go. So the bit that I just described about the master file is this section here. So are you making new elements? And you can request the master file to be updated. So there are a few like prototyping rules. They're kind of flexible rules. The idea is to build quickly. We've got about an hour and a half, 2 hours to build a prototype now in, or change your prototype if you've started. Build together, so discuss what you're building in XD. It's probably useful if one person uses XD and the other people support as that element, as you're building that prototype. You could have another person with the sticker sheet open, looking for different components that would work for different sections. You could have another person sketching as well. Another person documenting maybe as well, so there's plenty to do. You could even decide to do different sections of the prototype each. So if one person wanted to focus on what the users, so the volunteers, we're seeing in 10.4, and maybe another person wanted to do what the farmers, the NGOs, were seeing in 10.4, you could have 2 different prototypes from the 2 different user groups. So in your groups, decide how you want to divide up the work and what you want to contribute. Open up the discussion, staying focused, make as many as you can. So what you might find with prototyping is as you prototype, you might come up with new ideas or different ideas, and you can write those down, and if you have time, you can explore them. There are no mistakes. Okay, so ready to get working on your prototypes or carrying on with your prototypes. I'm going to put the mic down now, and I'm going to come around and help any groups that need any help. So questions about 10.4, questions about XD. If you want to show me certain exercises and get some feedback, then this is we've got now an hour and a half, 2 hours to be doing that, and then presentation time. Cool. Awesome. Let's go. Ooh. Okay, please do.
And the first one is admin, is someone is the NGO owner and who has the overall authority in rescuing events. And team leader, we will separate regions separate the place into several regions, and in each region there's a team leader, and they have experience of commanding the volunteers, the members, and their volunteers is someone who wants to help all the victims and front owners, and the last one is victim and front owner who are suffering in disaster and need help. And for admin, they can manage team leaders in charge of regions, and they can assign duties and handle the material delivery, and they can check locations of different users with different role types, and they can check the severity level and agent affairs, and they can check the total amount of member and assignments of each region, so they can upload the situation all the time and check the progress. And and this is the prototype we will show later. And for team leaders, they can evaluate how many volunteers or commodities they should assign and define the severity levels of a region. Then they will, based on this information, they will respond to admin and make a request for increasing or decreasing volunteers, commodities if necessary, depends on the situation. And they can recruit volunteers nearby if they are free, and they can assign duties and publish announcements to team members and check the GPS location and assignment progress of each team members. And they can request from local victims and add or remove the to-do list for the team and edit region name. And for volunteers, they can release their location information to events, and they can ask to join a team or leave a team if they finish their work. And they can request to be assigned automatically by a temporary AI or admin or team leader to a team nearby. And they can apply for team leader authorities via sending videos or photos of place or people to be rescued with GPS information. And this is in a situation that they are in a place that is unassigned, or the team leader may be too far away, so they need a new leader. And for victims and front owner, they can release their location information and send the severity level. And they can publish some descriptions and videos, photos of surroundings or people with GPS information for the rescue. And they can join an existing region nearby or request for help directly to the team leaders. And this is also the prototype we will show later. And now we finish this, we are going to take actions. And first we take admin as example. And this is like first they receive the request or information from victims and volunteers. Then they can initialize the amount of volunteers in each region based on the reply of the victims, and they can assign team leaders to each region, and depends on the situation, they can verify or modify the severity level, region, or numbers of volunteers, and handle the commodity supplies. And if there are some volunteers are free, they can assign them to the region that need help and update information all the time. And have the GPS information and we can define the severity level and click OK. And we can choose the leader and OK. And members, then we finish and choose OK again. Then we can see our creative group. There are 5 levels, just like I said, and we can view the information of it. And the level is the region's name, and the number here, the 15, means how many people are in this group. And this is the name of the team leader, and we can see the information. And this is all that we just saw. And we can define the region that it depends on the GPS information. We can, this number means, and color means also means the severity level. And we can click the button to find the overlapping, to find the total victims in these all areas. And we can find the overlapping cross, so we can assign these volunteers to help the most victims in this area. And we can also just choose one region and see how many victims and volunteers are inside. Okay, this is all for admins. And I think I just did here, we just show in the prototype. And for victims and farm owners, first they can release their request via temp4. They can send text descriptions, GPS location, and recommend to send. It's recommended to send actual address as a backup information, and they can check if there's any response from NGO admin. And they can send further information according to the queries from NGO, and they can check the leaders and volunteers in the region. Then they can send requests or suggestions to team leaders or NGO. Then they can, during the rescuing, they can update the recovering situation. And if the rescuing is finished, they can check out. And now let's show the prototype. And first, this is what the victims can fill in. They can have their situation place, and they can also send a voice file if they're inconvenient to type in words. And okay, they fill all this information they have. And when they finish, they can send photos, videos, record their voice location, and done. Yes. And we can click here to see, oh, there's check-ins. And we can find there's one response. And this is the team leader. We can either answer he or she, or just click the name and to contact to him or her directly through many ways. And that's all. Thank you. So there's a few things that I would comment on, like the importance of location within managing large amounts of volunteers is really great. The way that you added different content types, like photos and videos and voice recording, is really
Great. But what I can see here is like a prototype. The next stage of this would be a product manager taking the individual elements and making development issues, like develop the ability to add photos, develop the ability to add voice recordings. So this is what we want from these workshops are the kind of really larger scale. We want to be able to do this, and then the process of isolating all those different issues. But I want to give Mei a chance to feedback.
Eriol 是谢谢关于的介绍，然后是希望就是我们这整个规划它是可以像这样子层次比较高，然后比较多方面的去规划这样子。那像刚才就是有提到说，可能上主可以上传照片啊，或是做一些任务的管理，那这些是觉得蛮好的。对，那刚才这里有人在问我，那你先讲啊，这种问题。Okay, we have some question here, so let's start from Jamie.
OK，因为刚刚有提到说每个区域有多少百分比，有多少人需要协助，那相片在做上传，而上传这个动作是由志工跟农民或者是受灾害的人都可以做这个动作，所以登录前提是任何人都可以登录吗？还是他要有一个基本的条件，他才可以登录？是灾害发生的当时才可以登录，还是他事先是这个 app 的会员才可以使用？
所以我要讲中文。
而且你讲中文、英文都可以，我会做翻译。他们听得懂。就是先用一个语言，然后我再翻译成另外一个语言。对。
就是那个，因为这个需要是他是那个 10 forward 的会员，所以说在上传的时候，他本来就已经是10 forward 会员之后，他可以做上传。那这个上传它主要是，因为他可能在灾害发生的时候，其实不是每个人都知道有灾害发生，所以说这个东西是他登录之后，他可以上传上去，然后就是他们会知道有这件事情。对，所以说是受灾的那个人，他登录之后可以做上传的动作，然后上传之后，就是如果 NGO 的人有遇到这个东西的话，他就才会去，就是可能会请求他就是提供更多的资讯之类的。对，那我们的那个小组成员跟其他 user 可以上传的话，也是前提是他可能也是像是受灾，或者他本身在那个地方就是遇到了这个事情，然后他想要协助上传，那可能就是有点像是介入或者是他必须想要
Maybe someone in at this region, so can
志工的部分，他就是可能是他当地去那边去帮助之后，他可能想要就是觉得就是提供出来资讯不够多，他会另外做上传，不然他不会特别去做这个东西这样子。可以继续做。
但是这会有一个状况，因为它是灾害紧急，所以可能好，这个概念很棒，但是它如果在不是这么多人知道有这一个 app 的状况，我怎么样去可以及时的去留言，及时的去分享讯息？因为说我可能要注册或者我要成为会员，这是每次的问题。那有没有出现假资讯很多，或者像这种灾害的资讯及时很快速的，所以我怎么去核实这个讯息的真实性跟我这个志工说他有需要，可是这个志工其实协助完了，他的答案才是正确的，已经不需要。然后变成说可能有非常多组的志工往这个地方去做协助，而人力的分配还是出了问题。为什么去核实这个速度跟真实性？
这个就是说，虽然我们会有一个 team leader， 就是说当灾害发生了，然后我们就是比如说有不同地区有 victims， 对，就是他们就是上传这些东西，那他就会秀有这些区域嘛。那有这些区域的话，那如果说就是NGO 的人就会去判断说，目前就是哪些地区可能是有几个人这样子，然后他可能就会派一个 team leader去，等于有一点算是评估目前的状况。对，那评估之后，就是他可能先用初步判断大概可能需要多少人，但是他就是先可能就是派几个人，就是一个 team leader跟几个人
not got time to have a lot of back and forth, but so if we can do the next team, thank you. Which is the next team and your link?
中文好了，我来翻译成英文。
所以我们最后选3个 idea 可以做的，就是一个就是说，我们是想确认说那个 volunteer 到底有什么 scale， 然后就是他那个志工他的技能到底是什么，然后我们要确认做这件事情，然后看能不能分配到合适的地方这样子。然后就是如果有事情发生的话，能不能及时的反应，主要我们想要确认。然后其实就这样，我没有任何很困难的东西。然后就是其实时间上因为所以我们做后台并没有很急躁嘛。The page I want to use on the 我只是要放那个页面在上面我要用的东西，可是我没有把它做到说可以那个叫没有互动的，对。所以就是这几个 page， 然后一开始只是登录嘛，然后确认，然后选字它是什么样的，再显示一下它是什么样的，然后最后是输入你自己相关的资讯，然后最后面是就是只是选你的 skill 有什么而已。对，所以最后面只是选你有什么样的技能这样子，对，然后就把那个技能资料放进去这样子，对，就是非常简单的，可以 prototyping。Thank you.
I understand. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So, great selection of screens for what you want to do. The main screen, profile screen, and selecting different skills. And what I think you'll have here is skills that were added by the NGOs that they want, and you select from those skills rather than writing your own, right? Yeah. So you don't get random skills that you don't need for the support, the relief aid.
那我这边翻译一下，刚才 Ariel 的意思是说，有确认我们这边，因为是可以自己选择这个志工他有什么技能嘛？那这些技能都是我们在后台设定好的特定技能，所以不会让一般的 user 他自己随便新增我不需要的其他的技能，这样才可以缩小范围。对，那我们这边有没有什么发问的问题？跟聊跟他发问。
我就两个都一起回应哦。我想请教的是，因为我听了这2组的，刚刚就是志工这个部分哦，然后因为站在一个农场主的角度，我们好像就只能上传照片，然后等待救援嘛。那我想知道的是说，当我们上传照片之后，我到底可以得到什么？我可以跟谁联系？我可以跟谁确认这件事情？或者是说，我怎么知道我的志工在哪里？比如说我现在需要的是木工，然后当NGO分配完木工这个头是谁，我要怎么得知？就是说我们怎么互动，跟志工怎么互动？就是说好像只是等待。
So if they upload pictures, so they can contact someone or if you wanna know.
就是我们一开始是让志工上网登录他们技能嘛，那我们想要的下一步呢是现场我们的手机 APP 会有像是接任务单的界面，然后当我例如选择我要去 A 农场帮忙，然后就立刻会有 A 农场的联络资讯和立刻的管道可以跟。
Our witnesses we make is that this is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 5 challenges that we set the groups. There are so many other things that we need to do with this app to improve it. So next challenges would include the most important people in designing tools are the people that use them. So you are the stars of the people that we serve with.
那是非常感谢，就是这边我们的参与，所以说才能够给我们回馈业界实际上的意见跟流程，我们才更有方向的可以去优化。
So thank you for your feedback. And I hope to the designers and the technologists in the room, I hope comments in XD, comments on the GitHub issues, sketches, any way that you can upload is really, really useful. And just so you know where I received photography and where I did some of the research, here are some of the links, and the slides will be available for everyone that attended.
好，那在会后大家都可以收到我们这2天课程的简报，然后上面都有一些资源可以参考。谢谢。
And thank you to Adobe for funding this project, and thank you to Design It for also participating in the project. And thank you from Ushihidi and Open Design.
最后真的非常感谢大家，谢谢。
Thank you.